Welcome to this week's installment of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale with Don Henniger. I'm Don. With me is my podcast partner and man who gets a kick out of Scottsdale.
I do get a kick out of Scottsdale.
Kevin Maxwell.
That's right.
How are you, Kevin?
Good, Don. Good to see you, sir.
Speaking of kicks, we got a heck of a guest today.
Oh, man.
This is to me, I can't wait to talk to Alex Sachs. She works in the Scottsdale Crime Prevention Office, which is cool enough all by itself, but we're going to add another chapter. And she played on the Brazilian national women's soccer team, which won a silver medal in the 2004 Olympics. That is awesome. This is going to be a fascinating story. Absolutely, for sure. Welcome, Alex.
It's great to be here.
Now, before we get into Alex, though, Kevin, a couple of podcasts ago, you hijacked a podcast.
I did.
To talk about something that I'm involved with in terms of being appointed by the governor to this elections reform task force. But you've got something pretty cool going on, too, that I think is very newsworthy. And it involves the Coronado Promise. Talk a little bit about what you're doing with that.
Yeah, so the Coronado Foundation, in cooperation with the Charros and SUSD, has the Coronado Promise, which is a scholarship program for Coronado students. And it's been going on for a couple of years now. And they give scholarships to kids to go to underprivileged kids to go to college. It's pretty cool. But what was really neat was last year we found a niche, if you will. We found a little gap in funding where we had some students who got these really cool scholarships, but they had to give their Chromebooks back they used to study and do their homework on back to the school as they graduated, which left them with no technology to go to college with.
It doesn't help, does it?
No. And so we identified that. Even it happened after the scholarships have been awarded and the recipients have been identified. We kind of heard about it secondhand. So we managed to get 7 laptops for kids and get them in their hands so they can go to start school this past fall. And that was great. So this year we want to do it better. And thanks to the Charros and a really nice donation, we have 28 laptops that we're going to give away. Every single kid who gets this scholarship will also receive a laptop to go to school with. And I'm just thrilled.
Well, that's fantastic. But I also want to give a little kudos to you because the very first year when you did the 7 laptops, that was out of the goodness of your heart.
Yeah, it was.
That's pretty cool.
But we just identified a need, and they weren't that expensive. They weren't new laptops. They weren't that expensive, but it was really nice because it really changed. These changed some lives,
of course,
right? I mean, the scholarship changed their lives too, but we don't want to set them up for failure. So the laptops in coordination with this very generous scholarship that they got from the Coronado Promise really changed some lives. So we make sure they were set up for success.
Kevin, this is your gig. You started it. You funded it. It came from your big heart to begin with. Now you've been able to grow it with a bigger production with the Charros and even help more of our kids. So hats off to you, man. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Great
Thanks
job.
a lot. Appreciate it.
What a great example for others to follow about. You can make a difference in our community. Even if it's little, you never know. It might grow to something big.
Yep.
Pretty darn cool. So today we have Alex Sachs, who works in the Scottsdale Crime Prevention Office in the Via Linda District. The office works to keep residents safe, and it does this through education and programs that decrease their likelihood of someone being victimized. As an example, we talked about this earlier. It's really cool. Senior citizens walking.
Yeah.
Alex says that some seniors in the community want to get exercise, but they're afraid to walk alone. So Alex set up a program where they meet in front of the Via Linda Senior Center and go for a walk. That's really cool. I mean, talk about something that makes a difference for people. That's fantastic, Alex. That's awesome. One other thing before we get started with her, we're going to talk a little bit about her soccer career too, because that's an awesome story. She played on the Brazilian national women's team for 8 years. She won a silver medal in the 2004 Olympics in Athens, losing to the U.S. team. Yeah. At least you got the silver, right?
Yeah, it happens.
But she also played in several South American Cup tournaments as well. She's in the Brazilian Sports Hall of Fame for all the advocacy work that she's done for women's athletics since she retired in 2007. Alex, this is an amazing journey.
It is.
So many questions, but let's start with a little bit about your background in Brazil and tell us about that, and then how your path took you right here to Scottsdale.
Okay, well, I was blessed to be born in a family that gave us my sister. I have a twin sister.
You do?
She's not a soccer player.
Oh, no.
And she's not very athletic either.
Oh, no. You got all those genes, right?
Traveling around the world. My dad was vice president of Merck Pharmaceuticals. So I went to high school in Paris, American School of Paris. Wow. And then we returned to Brazil after we graduated in 92. And my dad said, well, you guys are going to Brazil to go to college because I'm not paying for you to go to college in the United States. So I went to Brazil. I was going to school. I was going to college when a friend of mine approached me and said, hey, they're doing this women's soccer league. I said, okay. Well, in Brazil, they don't have women's soccer leagues. I'm like, okay. And so she said, can you come with me? I said, I'm not a really good soccer player. And she goes, it's okay. Just go with me. I just need someone to go with me. So we went. So 10 of the top soccer clubs in São Paulo, where I'm from, were doing tryouts, and everyone got in. So don't think I was like some unknown phenomenon. And I got into Corinthians soccer club, played with them, and of course wanted to challenge myself, and decided that, I want to be part of the Brazilian national team. So they were going to have women's national team. So I worked very hard. It took me 4 tries to get onto the Olympic team. But I played in a bunch of South American games and championships. And that's how I got involved with realizing that I grew up in New Jersey in the United States, where women and girls had the opportunity to play sports. And going back to Brazil, that was my culture shock, was that, especially in soccer, it was not seen as a girl sport or a women's sport. It's very machismo way of life there with soccer. So I really worked on getting people to understand that it didn't matter if it was women playing. Soccer should be played by everyone.
Right.
So that's how I got involved with my advocacy and really working. I was going to school also as playing soccer. And so I graduated with an undergrad in physical education and decided I wanted to do sports psychology. So I got my master's in Brazil in sports psychology, and had the opportunity to have my master's thesis published in the World Conference of Sports Psychology, which at that time was in Skiathos, Greece. So I went to Greece, and there I met Darren Treasure, who at the time was a professor at Arizona State. My parents had moved to Arizona. Don't ask me why, but they moved to Arizona. And so he invited me to kind of get to know Arizona State University. So I headed here. That's how I got to Arizona. I did my doctorate program with him, and then he left. And then I went to San Diego and did some of my doctoral there, also in sports psychology.
Wow.
What a story.
No kidding, right?
We could talk about this piece of it. Just ask questions, Kevin. This is amazing.
Okay, so my first question is this. So you're telling me in a country like Brazil, which has a storied, long tradition of being world-class soccer with Pele and all the great players that came out of there, they didn't have a women's program until, 20, 30 years ago?
No, they did in the 1980s, but it was very small.
Okay.
Like I said,
but still 80, that's only 50 years ago compared to the men, right? I mean, and it was just because it was a cultural thing then, because
it's
this wasn't
accepted. It's a cultural thing.
Okay.
It wasn't accepted. Girls played other sports. Volleyball in Brazil is super big. Basketball in Brazil is huge. Women's basketball.
Women's basketball, right. Okay.
Yeah, we had some great athletes, basketball players that actually played in the WNBA. But soccer was not. Soccer was regarded more of a man's sport, and they had a very tight, like our first uniforms were men uniforms. So we kind of looked kind of funny,
Really?
right? We're all baggy because they're like, we have uniforms, but they weren't uniforms for us.
Right.
And then you went out and won a silver medal in the Olympics.
It took a long time.
What a storybook ending that is, though, right?
It is. I mean, the national team has 2 silver medals, one in Athens, which was our first one, and then Beijing.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
What was the experience like playing in the Olympics? Going to Athens and going through all those games and making it all the way to the final round? That must have been amazing. What was your favorite memory from there? A couple of memories, maybe.
I always tell people the coolest thing was, it was not cool because it was a tragedy, but 2000, we had the bomb, World Trade Center.
Just a few years earlier. Yeah.
Just a few. So this was the biggest event after that.
Right, okay.
So it was really cool because Brazil's apartment, because there are apartments in the village, was next to the U.S. behind Israel. So it was really cool to be a part of that, to be a part of with the United States athletes and just be part of that amazing, I don't know. I don't know how to say it. Like just a great atmosphere.
Yeah.
And the Israelis are great.
Are they?
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That would have been an awesome corner to talk about the athletes. So did you interact a lot with the athletes from Israel and U.S.?
As much as I could. We didn't stay. The women's soccer wasn't played in Athens. We were actually played in different islands in Greece. So we didn't stay a lot in the village.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience. It was, you get to know so many people because we keep forgetting that the majority of people that are there, even though they're Olympians, I mean, they'll be there for a day and lose. Right. So it's just so nice to be in an atmosphere where everyone's just wanting there to meet people and just, I can't explain it. I tell people like, we do the Maccabi Games, which is the Jewish Olympics here when I worked at the Jewish Community Center. And I tell the kids, that's a little taste of what it's like in the Olympics.
Now, were you striker or what was your position you play?
Well, come on, look at my height. I was a goalie.
Oh,
come on, man.
Really?
Yes.
No kidding.
I mean, look at the height. You would have just assumed that, right?
No,
tell me you would.
Just so you know, she's a little shorter than I am.
Yeah,
so
a little shorter.
She's not real tall.
Yeah, because I played
4'11".
Well, there you go. Okay, yeah.
Because I played goalie, and I was thinking you had to be a little taller. But
she probably had a lot of athleticism.
She probably did. Yeah.
Did you play soccer earlier in your life as well?
Recreationally. I wanted to be a tennis player. I love tennis.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I played tennis most of my life.
I wanted to ask you what it was like walking into the Athens Stadium in the opening ceremonies, what that must have felt like.
Well, I don't know because we did not walk in.
Oh, you didn't walk in?
No, because we were already in an island to play.
You were.
So, sorry.
That would have been cool. Did you go to the closing ceremony?
Yes.
Okay. What was that like?
It was good.
Okay.
It's a little different, you know, because there not a lot of countries are still there.
That's what if you lose and go home, right?
Yeah. You know, the federations are paying for their athletes, so it gets a little expensive.
But it must have been cool, though, to be playing a sport that was kind of drawn out. The fact that you probably took a fair amount of those 2 weeks to get to the round play and get to the finals, all that stuff. Where, as you mentioned before, like somebody who's in an individual event, they could come and be one and done, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that's what happens. Yeah, usually they're one and done, especially like track and field or swim. You know.
Yeah. So do you stay involved with soccer activities here in the Valley in Scottsdale? Do you go to Phoenix Rising games? Are you connected with them, or is the soccer spirit still with you?
I actually coach soccer. Actually, I'm coaching this year at Pardes Jewish Day School, the 7th and 8th grade boys soccer team.
Oh, wow.
And I just like to say that we're undefeated. We're 2-0 this season.
Look out. Okay, you're off to a good start.
I'm just letting you know.
Yeah, okay, cool. We're going to keep an eye on that.
Tell us real quick you told me a quick story because even when you retired, you still had a lot of input in the sport in Brazil, right? Did you not?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I wrote a lot of articles. I participate in panels about how we can improve women athletes in general, not only in soccer, but in general in Brazil. So I stay very in touch with my sports psychologist, Dr. Regina Brandão, to kind of get going with those ideas of how can we make this even better. You know, Olympics in Rio was really good, and we want to keep that momentum going of getting girls involved in sports. I truly believe that sports, no matter boy or girl, is very important. It gives you tools that you can take for a lifetime.
Yeah. Well, you're also inducted into the Brazilian Sports Hall of Fame for all the work you did around that. What was that like, getting inducted into the Hall of Fame? Something like that must have been tremendously impactful.
A lot of hard work.
Yeah.
You know, my love for sports psychology, my love to just get the idea, the information out of how we could better understand women athletes. And I still fight it today because unfortunately we've never had a woman soccer coach in Brazil for the national team and until now, but she's not Brazilian. So it's how can we get our former athletes to be part of that? How can we make their careers last longer than just, you know, 10 years,
That's
12 years.
That's a great question.
Yeah. Or maybe if your team that you're on now is 2-0 advances, maybe they'll call on you to become.
You never know, right?
Do you go back to Brazil much and stay in touch with the community back there?
I haven't been in Brazil for 13 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But my parents go back every year. And I still talk to people. I still have lots of friends there, and we still talk. I'm part of Athletes for Hope, which is a nonprofit here in the U.S. So I always try and talk to my friends to see what's happening in Brazil, so I can reach out here and tell people, hey, this is what we need. This is what would benefit some athletes.
What a journey.
I'm kidding. We're halfway through the podcast. We haven't talked about all the cool things you're doing with Scottsdale Police.
Well, here's something I was thinking about, Kevin, as she's talking. We've had probably 4 or 5 people from the police department, from the chief on down to a bunch of others, and every one of them has had fascinating stories. But here's the other thing I'm noticing, and now that we're spending some time with Alex, I see it in her too. They're all cut with a culture of giving back and preventing and caring about their communities. Look at the advocacy work that Alex has done. It seems to be a common trait in just about every single guest we've had from the police department here. When you peel back the curtain and see who's back there, it's an amazing story to be able to talk to these folks individually and see what they're doing.
They're outstanding humans, every one of them.
Absolutely. So talk about it. I mean, you've got an amazing background. I had no idea you've all the educational degrees that you have as well, and all the experience you have from the academic world. How is that playing out now in terms of what you're doing for the police department here?
So about a year ago, the chief and I were sitting down. We were talking about how we could engage our youth, especially elementary school. So we came up with the Police Activities League, which is a national league. It started in New York. So we created one here for Scottsdale. And I created a curriculum for the kids with the core values of RISE. So it's resilience, integrity, strength, and empowerment. So we started out at the Barker Branch Boys and Girls Club with a 6-week dodgeball program. And it went really well. So we played dodgeball for about 40 minutes. And then for 20 minutes, I talked to the kids about one of our core values. We talked and did a worksheet and kind of talked for them to understand like what resilience is. We also invited not only our officers, as you know, a police station is not only sworn officers, but you have a lot of professional staff, a lot of civilians.
Yeah.
So we had CSS come out, which is our crime scene. We had records come out. We've had personnel come out. So the kids could see all that entails that runs a police station. So they're not just stuck with, I can only be a police officer.
Oh, yeah. Good
So the kids really enjoyed getting to know and then have adults that really cared. I mean, they went out there and played dodgeball with all their heart. The chief.
Right. Chief's a good dodgeball player?
Yes, we had to tone him down a little bit.
Oh, was he a little intense?
A little bit. He was a little upset that we don't use regular rubber red balls anymore.
What were you using?
The Gator ones. They're a little bit softer, a little bit, they're not hurting kids.
Really?
Well, that way you can throw them harder, right?
He claims no. So
Next time I see Chief, I can't wait to ask him that question.
Was Joe LeDuc in there too?
LeDuc came, yeah.
Get on him.
Slavin.
He'd be that's right, Chief Slavin. He'd be good too.
Yeah.
I bet you Joe LeDuc he's tall. He'd be good.
He looks like an athlete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chief Walter, wow. I was like, whoa.
Wow.
They're only third graders.
Right.
Easy up.
Where is the Barker branch of the?
It's on Miller and Oak.
Oh,
right next to El Dorado Aquatic Center.
Sure.
Oh, right by my house.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah,
so we're starting again in April. So if you want to come and join us, it's on Wednesdays at 4 p.m.
Can I ride to the podcast?
It's a podcast. Yep.
Right. Okay.
Do it. Yeah. Maybe we'll go down there together sometime.
Let's go play some. Let's go
on opposite sides. You can try to nail me with a dodgeball and back and forth.
That'd be fun.
That's always fun.
Yeah.
So tell us what else your department does, because I mean you talked about that story about the walking program you have for seniors. What else are you doing with the department? I mean, I love the idea that, and we found this universally with the police folks we've talked to. Everybody's all about preventing crime, not worrying about catching criminals, but preventing it from happening, which I think is an awesome way to go. Seems like that's what your department's doing too.
Yeah. So because of this a successful program with dodgeball and kickball. We actually do a 6-week kickball. We created with Yavapai Elementary School a leadership program. So we take 12 fourth graders and 12 fifth graders and go through a leadership program with them. And then they go to the recess yard for first and second graders and become leaders of the recess yard.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So we teach them how to resolve conflict.
Yeah.
We teach them like leadership skills. We teach them how to engage with students. And these fourth and fifth graders are killing it.
Are they?
They are amazing. And I feel that the younger kids listen to a fifth grader because they idolize or admire that fifth grader more than a adult telling them what to do. So it's been very successful. It's a great program. We're hoping to expand it. And the kids just love it. I'm wearing the shirt because the kids just love it. So they wear the shirt, go out in recess, learn some things. And we talk about all types of how to talk to people. So they're learning these tools, not only for the recess yard, but when they get older, they have all this in their tool bag.
I love that program. Is it Yavapai now? Is there a chance you can expand to some other schools in the district?
Yeah, I'm
also?
hoping to go to a couple of other schools next year. Same thing with our league, kind of go to different boys and girls clubs.
Wow. So you obviously really work closely with the school district then.
Yes.
Right. How does that work? That partnership work?
It's actually excellent. Libby, I guess.
Libby Hartwell?
Mm-hmm.
Been on our podcast before.
Yeah, she's an amazing woman. Yeah. I met her and that's how we came, and she introduced me to Yavapai, especially because Barker Branch is right down the street and a lot of the kids from Yavapai go there. That's how I got the foot in the door. Our program is seen, people like it. Teachers, fourth and fifth grade teachers said that their kids have changed their attitude, their stance. Like I said, we picked 12 fourth graders and 12 fifth graders. And so they're really, you can see a change in them.
And how often would you meet with them?
We do it once a week on a Thursday. And then on Wednesdays, we do recess. Unfortunately, nowadays, it's only 20 minutes.
So that's where they practice their leadership skills they learned on the previous Thursday then. Mm-hmm. Wow.
And then I teach them different games, and then they teach those games to the kids.
I love the idea that this was a partnership with a school board member and with Alex, because all the attention you have on school boards right now, which is tends to be kind of negative news, but to look at the good work the school board members are doing and outreach like this with our community partners, that's exactly the way it's supposed to work. It's great. Fantastic.
And it gives them a chance, the kids, to see law enforcement in a different way. The SROs are great, school resource officers. Mm-hmm. They have great engagement, but I wanted them to see other adults that are also in law enforcement. And they see that we care. And, my partner, Brian, and I go, and then we invite people to come and see the kids play and maybe talk to them a little bit about a certain thing that we're learning. If we're learning about respect or confidence, and they'll come and talk to the kids.
Got to shine a light. This is why we do these podcasts.
Exactly. To
find this kind of stuff going on in our community that I don't think I've ever seen anything written up on it, any of the newspapers or whatever. So being able to tell that story to our listeners, I think is just a wonderful thing.
And there's, Don, there's hundreds of stories like this out here, right?
I know.
We just scrape the tip of the iceberg when we talk about this stuff. This is what we're trying to find in these stories like this. That's why when I met Alex briefly at an event, the Boys and Girls Club event 2 weeks ago, I'm like, you've got to come on our podcast and talk about it.
Absolutely. Right. And while we have that thought, and any of our listeners that have stories like that need to be told us too, just let us know.
Yeah.
That's what we're all about. So really appreciate all the good work that people are doing in our community. That sometimes they're doing it without any fanfare. Yeah. They're doing it just to make our community a better place to live. So what else is your organization doing in terms of? I love the senior program.
Can you talk about that just a little bit more? Don mentioned what you did, but
the senior walking program.
Yeah, that's something. You came up with that? Is that right?
We decided we do a lot of SCAM presentations. My partner and I, and a lot of times I heard, you always have to listen to people because they'll tell you what they're feeling. A lot of people said they didn't walk or do a lot of activities alone because their significant other or their family member were too nervous to leave them by themselves. So one day I was having coffee with my partner and I said, why don't we just do a senior walking club? He goes, well, what would that entail? I said, well, we would meet and then we would just walk somewhere like in a park, and then they could get their exercise. This is a way we can engage them, because sometimes they don't want to tell probably their significant other or family member if they were scammed or if something's going on. Now they feel comfortable. They can tell us. So now we have a pulse of what's going on in their lives. And he's like, well, let's try it. So I did talk to the senior center and I said, hey, can we try this? It would be a free program. And they're like, yeah. And right now we get about 3 to 6 walkers, but we've gotten up to 12. It just depends. There's other stuff going on in the center, but it's great. I mean, we've made great friends. People really enjoy it.
Can you imagine how much it must mean to those seniors to be able to get it through a program like? And there's a really lovely trail out by the Via Linda Senior Center. Is that where you walk?
Yeah, it's a mile. We do a mile, and now we're doing 2 miles because people feel we've been exercising for so long.
Getting the endurance up.
Yeah, so we do 2 miles, and we talk, and we get to know them, and they get to know us.
Have you made some discoveries in those conversations? Have people revealed things to you?
Yeah.
Because I know that when we had Detective Sergeant Andrew Parrott on here a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about how listening and being available really, people will reveal to you they've been victims of crime in the past. Does that happen? It happens.
And we've had a lady tell us stuff about scams and that stuff, and we're like, oh, okay, this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
People do, because they start trusting you and you're just chit-chatting. So, yeah. And that's what I wanted. I wanted a safe environment where people could share things that maybe they wouldn't share with other people.
Sure. Safe to talk to somebody like that, right?
Do you think, going back to the kids program that you have at Yavapai, the leadership program, do you think that makes them, probably more engaged with the police officers as they move forward, right? Less scared of police officers, and they understand what your real role is? Yeah.
And I think that's where the kids come now and see, is that we're actually friends. I was just telling the chief before I came here, I have a student that's in our PAL program, and we were talking the other day, and he said, well, I want to go to Harvard when I grow up. And I said, oh, I can see, and I can see this kid going to Harvard. So I was like, I can see you going to Harvard. And about 2 minutes later, he turns, he goes, Alex, really? You can actually see me going to Harvard? I said, yeah, you can do whatever you want, buddy. And he's like, you're the first adult that has said that without laughing at me.
Wow. That's pretty powerful.
Wow.
That's what it's all about right there.
That's changing lives again.
Changing lives one at a time. That's what it takes. And the impact you have on kids. I would love to see if you could expand that program and talk about building leadership skills in kids that will last for a lifetime. And now maybe that student feels like he's got a chance at Harvard. Maybe he'll end up there. That's amazing.
Have you created any other programs that kind of have come from your academic background that have been helpful?
Right now, no. This is what I've been focusing on, because I really wanted to get these kids involved. I grew up loving the police, even though in Brazil, when I was a kid, a woman couldn't be a police officer.
Really?
Yeah. Only in the 90s, the women were allowed to be in the military. So I wanted kids to not see us as enemies, especially nowadays with the culture that we're in. I wanted them to see that we're there for them. We're not there to yell, scream, arrest, we wanted them to see that what we learn as police officers or anyone working in law enforcement, those tools are so important that we can give you these tools and you can be as successful. Integrity is one of the key ones. I tell them all the time. Be truthful, be honest, tell us what you're feeling. Integrity is key, not only to be an excellent police officer, but an excellent human being. I just want these kids to grow up and be good humans.
Yep.
And they're starting, because they go out at that recess and play with those kids. And you should see them talking to the kids and explaining like, okay, you have to do rock, paper, scissors. You can't cry, And they did a Coronado Corridor video. And they did put PALs there. And it was amazing to see one of our students talk about what we do and the word safety coming on, not as a bad thing, but a good thing.
Amazing.
Wow. What's the Coronado corridor video?
It's a video, I think, made by the district to kind of get people engaged in those 3 schools, Yavapai,
okay,
or the 4 schools.
The Coronado Learning Community, they call it. Yeah. Okay.
It's just to get people more involved. So they were showcasing some, because they have some great programs.
Oh, yeah.
That I don't think a lot of people are aware of. And then PALS was one of them that they kind of showcased. I was like, I don't know if the kids are like, oh, we're going to be like, I don't know if they're going to pick our program. But at the end of the day, they actually did a nice chunk on what we do.
Fantastic. I can't tell you how proud I am of the Scottsdale Police Department.
I know, right?
We've had 5 or 6 guests on from the department, and it's amazing to get to know these people, the people who are protecting our backsides. When
we went on our ride along, what we find, what we discover, what was our biggest takeaway of that, Don? I think we'll agree. What was that?
Prevention.
For us? Yeah, right?
Prevention.
Yeah.
The heck with, there's no joy in arresting people. There's joy in preventing things from happening.
Yeah, I remember when you're a Scottsdale leadership grad, so am I, and we have the community service day where you go to the police department and you see some, and then the thing that resonated with me from that day, which was 6-7 years ago now, well, they talked about community policing, and I'm like, what does that mean? What does community policing mean? And it was Chief Rodbell at the time who explained what it really meant,
right.
And it's really about engaging the community, and starting from each person.
And when you look what's happening across the country with various police departments and the bad name that some people get with a couple of bad apples here and there, but you bring it back home to Scottsdale, couldn't be prouder of the work that's happening here. Wow, what a fantastic!
And we
job.
love our citizens. It's so nice to walk and have people thank you and buy coffee, and our coffees with a cop are always full, and it's very positive language dialogue. Asking us what we do, how they can help. So that's why I chose Scottsdale.
Yeah, makes sense. Listening, they listen to us.
Yeah,
fantastic. Kevin, any other questions for Alex today?
No,
what a show, huh?
I just want to say, yeah, what a show for sure. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing this with us. I think it's really important that our audience hears what's going on, because these are untold stories that we're uncovering, right?
Absolutely. Gosh, what a great show. Any analytics this week, Kevin?
I didn't get a chance. I was going to do something on soccer players in Arizona, but I think Alex is a pinnacle, so
Alex,
I stopped.
We want to give Alex our time today. It was a fascinating conversation. Alex, what a delight. We can't begin to thank you enough and to tell you how proud we are of the work you do to keep us all safe and to engage youngsters in leadership stuff. I mean, just the whole gamut. And your advocacy for women's sports, right on. We need more of that everywhere, not just in Brazil, but we need that here too. So thank you so much for being with us today. What a treat. And thanks to all of you for listening. We look forward to being back with you again for our next edition of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale.